everybody. Hope everyone has had a super week. Here we are in the middle of February, and wanted to, again, my name's Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO and Executive Director for Maryland's TEDCO. And I've had a lot of chance to meet some great folks in our TEDCO talks, but I have to honestly say today I'm honored to be able to talk to someone that's truly a change maker, someone who's really making a difference in the lives, and particularly of women, but making lives and how people think about the role and the impact that, in particular, women can have in our work and in our world and entrepreneurship. Amy Millman, it's a pleasure with Springboard. It's a pleasure to have you here on TEDCO Talks today.
It's so great to be here. You know, I'm a dyed and true Marylander, and excited to see what's been going on at TEDCO and what's been going on in the community, and glad to be on today with you.
Thank you. Well, Amy, let's just start out with, let's have a little fun to start out with. We're in the middle of COVID here, and still, like you and I discussed, we're probably gonna be in this for a minute. So what's been the go-to thing to kind of keep you occupied as you kind of navigate your way through COVID?
When I used to, back in the day, a year ago,
As I call it BC, before COVID. BC.
Before COVID, I was on an intimate relationship with all of the all the airports in the area, and spending a lot of time not here, but everywhere around the globe. Meeting entrepreneurs and our communities and all our network and everywhere, which was pretty exciting. But now I get to do it from home. So again, be in the place that I love to be most of all, and yet still connect with people all over the globe, in a 24/7 world. So things haven't changed very much for me, except that I don't have to get on a plane.
Have you picked up any new habit or hobby that you now maybe have a little bit more time to do, given that you're not traveling as much?
Well, actually, I acquired, instead of having grandchildren around, because my kids live in Los Angeles, I acquired a dog. So we call them the COVID pets. I think everybody in the neighborhood in Maryland has a dog now, and we acquired one that keeps me busy when I'm not Zooming.
What kind of dog?
Well, it's a good question. He's a big one now. Wasn't so big when I first got him. He was a transplant from Oklahoma, and cute little thing that is now about 50 pounds and eats us out of house and home. But it definitely is a fun sideline.
So was it he or she?
It's a he, definitely.
Is he gonna make a visit while we're taping here? Is he gonna make a visit while we're?
He's always getting his face into one of the Zoom calls.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, Amy, why don't you tell, a lot of folks may not know obviously about you, but more importantly, Springboard and the great work that you do with Springboard. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about your journey and obviously about Springboard?
Well, I came to Washington right after college, and with an idea of being involved with Congress, like everybody else. Come to Washington, either international relations, or you're going to be doing policy or lobbying or whatever. And I did. That's what I did. I ended up lobbying for a large corporation for many years and other trade associations and things. And then I was introduced to a federal commission on women's business ownership, something I knew absolutely nothing about. And they said, no, they need an executive director for this federal commission. You should do this. And I thought, well, it's now or never. And so I took on this, and that was it. I was hooked, finding small business people and trying to understand their interests and, what makes them tick and why they would go do this when they could have gotten a job somewhere, and, and waited for them to get the watch and the retirement. And and then found that I never want to be around anybody else but those who are starting businesses, building businesses, until I met this group in California at the end of the 90s. And they were all tech entrepreneurs, building something that almost didn't exist at this point. And I said, that's it. I'll follow them wherever they go and see what I can do to pave the way or help them open a door. For me, I'm just a connector. Lobbyists are people who make connections based on interests. And so I use that, that skill that I developed for 20 years to support entrepreneurs, who are creating something out of whole cloth. And it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. And so a Springboard, so talk a little bit more what Springboard does and what you do there at Springboard.
Mm-hmm. So we're, we call ourselves an accelerator, but we're really an expert network. Mm-hmm. We're a nonprofit. And everyone says, why did you do that? If you're doing business. And I said, because in the early days, in 2000, anybody who was a for-profit working with entrepreneurs was pretty much out of business when the market crashed. And so with the support of the Kauffman Foundation, that I had developed a relationship prior, we said, we think that there's a market that hasn't been addressed, and that is companies led by women in the tech space. And we just happened to have all the right, resources to be able to help, those types of companies in the early days and learn with them. And a bunch of folks in Silicon Valley that we knew that were pretty influential gave us space and support and said, sure, we'll help you find the entrepreneurs and we'll help you get them funded. And so we started this program, a forum program, with a bunch of people that were interested in the space. And we said, all right, let's see if we can find a couple of women-led companies. We found hundreds and hundreds, thousands actually. And the ones that we selected to work with all got funded. And then the market crashed. And everyone said, well, I guess you're out of business. You'll go do something else, back to lobbying or whatever. And I said, no, I think entrepreneurship is always in season. And so we should see what else is happening in the rest of the country. So we came to the DMV, and AOL was at the heyday in those days. And we found about 50 companies, all led by women in the tech and life science space. And Steve Case gave us his space out in Ashburn, and most of them got funded. And then we went to Boston, to Harvard, and found another several hundred companies and showcased about 25 there, and they got funded. And then we thought, God, we know how to do this. and so the interesting part of all of this is, we found entrepreneurs everywhere now, all over the planet. We do programs in Australia, and our companies number about 820 or so now wow. in the portfolio. 21 of them, actually 22 now, are public companies. And they've raised, in total with IPO sales and venture angel investments, family offices, about $27 billion, and still going strong. Our most recent acquisition was a company called Ask Bio from North Carolina. They're a gene therapy company, sold to Bayer for $4 billion value just in December. So we're feeling really good. And we've been watching that company for 15 years and working with them. So that was a big celebration for us. But, all of the companies, we also do a fashion tech program that works with a lot of the fashion and retail bigwigs, and it's a connection opportunity. We're connecting people to partners and investors and experts who can help you on your journey.
Well, wow, a lot of things, but like I said at the beginning, change maker. So thank you for all you've done. I mean, 27 billion, that's a real number. That's a real impact. I'm sure within all of that, there's got to be one or two just great stories you could tell. If you got one top of mind that comes.
I have 820 of them.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think about, since I'm the co-founder, I've been there from the beginning. The interesting, I guess one of the original interesting stories was Zipcar. When we met Zipcar, Robin Chase had just come back from a trip from Europe, where she and a friend of hers have figured this out, that this is a good opportunity. She lived up in Cambridge, where space to park your car was very, very difficult. And so, started this out. And I remember very distinctly, there was nobody interested in that space. Everybody had a car and everybody had access to a rental car. Mm-hmm. And she got nothing for several years, until we actually introduced her to folks at the George Washington University that said, our students they can't afford taxis. Mm-hmm. So, cars when you want them is perfect. Let's put a couple on campus. And then that introduced her to other opportunities where instead of buying a fleet, you could actually have a Zipcar there. Yep. And that was the beginning of the change of Zipcar, which actually created this whole idea of car sharing.
Car sharing, exactly correct.
Oh, so that was a great. That was one.
The way you just told that story, and and I say this as well. When you think of women, when you think of Blacks, we see markets and we see opportunities. Let's just be blunt, that the mm-hmm. white man may not see. Mm-hmm. And so that's but they have the money. And so how do you have to, and so I guess I'd like to hear you talk about to our audience and to our listeners, particularly women, how they take this lens that they see differently than mm-hmm. the rest of the world sees, and how they get someone to see their lens.
Mm-hmm. There was a great story. There's a woman from New York. Her name was Ellie Guggenheimer, a big socialite in New York City. And she was invited to serve on and not a professional, but a philanthropist. Mm-hmm. She was invited to sit on this committee where they were building a low-income housing group in Lower Manhattan. And they decided it would be wonderful to put it up on a hill, to create a hill. Okay. And put this big, and she said, and they were all excited. They brought the whole architectural, plans and everything out there. And she said, no, because that means that when they come back from the grocery store, they're going to have to walk up that hill with the kids and the groceries. This is wrong, to make them walk up the hill in order to get to their apartment. Mm-hmm. It never occurred to the guys, because they would probably be parking in the parking garage or their driver come and pick them up.
Exactly.
And so, but that was very impactful for me to realize that what you needed from different people with different perspectives to talk about innovative opportunities and what's right. And so, a couple of years ago, we started to realize, look at who got funded from certain sectors in the life science space. And none of our entrepreneurs who had focused on women or women's health or health for particular minorities or ethnic ethnicities were not getting funded. Mm-hmm. And that means that so we went to all the pharmaceutical companies, investor groups, and they said, well, it's not really a market for us. And we said, it's because there's no data. Nobody ever really looked at it. It wasn't personal to those fellows who were investing. They didn't see it. And we said, we're going to bring you, information that will inform this as a business opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started a whole women's health group that said, here's the enormity of this market that you're missing. And so bring it to people that could see how they could collaborate on innovation. And then the investors get interested when they see there is a potential market, a large potential market. But before that, we see them all over the place, but the investors and the big pharmaceutical companies, device companies, did not see it as a business opportunity.
So, and it's probably the same question, but when I hear you talk about 27 billion and 800 companies, 22 publics, I mean, those are real metrics. Those are real successes. Yet, the numbers probably even better than I do. I think I saw, less than 5% of venture funding has gone to,
2%.
Yeah.
And less for women of color.
Exactly. And so in my mind, there's just this disconnect, right, between the success that you're showing, and even I can talk about some of the stuff we've shown in TEDCO as some successes in TEDCO, those successes, but you look at this broader metric that the needle isn't getting moved. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, 51% of the population are women. You'd think that they would have, a significant amount, but you have to think about culture, and you have to think about how far we've come. And yes, as we always say, there's so much more to do, but honestly, it hasn't been that long that, women and people of color have been in serious professional positions to feel comfortable about going out there. And I mean, this is a big risk. This is tremendous risk that you're taking for not only yourself, but your family and your future. There's nothing in it that's guaranteed to start entrepreneurial business. So you have to really be motivated for that, and if you don't have a support network, then no, you're jumping off of a cliff. So for the most part, women really, until probably about the 80s and early 90s, really didn't have, that risk, gene, at that point, or feel that, and the market wasn't saying, for the most part, you didn't see women and minorities in numbers, any critical mass in the whole entrepreneurial world. The stories also that the people that came from India to come to school here and start businesses, but they started to, they wanted to get jobs in HP and some of those others, and they were basically relegated to very low positions because they weren't the kind of people that they would have hired for senior, management, upward mobility roles. I mean, and they talk about that. And so in order to actually change that, they had to support each other.
Yep.
And I think that that's what we've learned.
You used this word twice in which you just in your answer there, which I think is one of the words I think is risk. And that risk gene, I think you're 100% right. And again, I think as a Black man in my own journey, you aren't raised in a culture where you can take on that risk, because you're raised particularly in the Black, you're raised to go to school, get a job, like you said earlier, get the gold watch. And, women, or even, let's be blunt, even more, get a job, get a family,
Get married.
Yeah. And so it is taking on that risk, that whole, thinking about it differently. And we're trying to think about that differently. Even at TEDCO, we have this group called the Network Advisors, which are a lot of talented individuals that part of guidance. So one group of individuals that we're introducing into that group of network advisors, Amy, is financial planners. So to help them, these particularly folks from minorities, never had a financial planner, and to help them understand this risk that they're taking on, how to think about it, how best to protect their family. And for the financial planners that we've introduced, they now have they've gotten free client access to people that they wouldn't have had, before.
Right.
But it's that type of a conversation that has to happen with them.
Well, and there has to be this understanding, as we started to see women making their own money, and getting out there, and being the breadwinners for many families or single mothers in this, you began to see, there needs a financial literacy first off, and then, with professional credentials come more responsibility and more opportunity. And then when you start to see others that are willing, and open to talking with you because they see the opportunity, or they're familiar with you. We used to say, the thing about Springboard in the beginning was we didn't want to do anything more early than just introduce people and get them familiar with talking to women about business. And once that happened, that cut out all of that, you don't look like somebody I would invest in. And I thought it would take a couple of years, and now it's 20 years and we're still pushing that rock up a hill, but much less now. And, hopefully in my lifetime, that won't even be part of the conversation. Yeah.
No, I hear you. So I as we knew when I was going to talk to you, I never forget, I saw this interview. It was on one of the local news channels in the last week or so, how COVID, kind of the old necessity is the mother of invention, how COVID, a number of women entrepreneurs, because of the staying at home and being at home, have created small enterprises because of COVID to deal with, various things around the kids, around whatever it is. I guess my question is around COVID, and how has COVID, have you seen even more creativity and more innovation because of COVID coming through the doors of Springboard?
Years ago, one of our companies was called 30-Second Mom. And it basically was 30-second clips of information that was, that was valuable to moms. So while you're waiting for your kids to come out of school, or whatever, whatever your situation was, you could watch this little clip on how to do this or how to do that. And that was the beginning of this whole idea. Now you have Coursera and, tons of other, online education things. But when you started to look at where people get their information, it's not all from the office. It's not all, you don't have to travel to learn things.
as you discovered.
Right? You just, you can learn stuff at home now, and you could be equally as productive. And now, we always say women are great jugglers, multitaskers. Now they could even be better multitaskers, because they could be talking to you here, and at the same time there's another tablet over there telling them how to handle or what their schedule is for next. And I'm not saying I'm really good at that, but here's the dog.
There he is. We knew you'd make an appearance. What's going on, man? What's going on? And you look until you got that look like, who the heck?
He's very curious.
Exactly.
But I think that we're not going to go back to that, the old way of doing things. Yeah, there are a lot of people who are going to want to do that. A lot of people that feel comfortable with that. They like to partition their lives into that, but not everybody does that. And so I kind of look at this as, this would be so interesting to see how this new way of functioning is going to change all of our lives and the way we do business. Think about, kids in school, they are now acclimated to, doing work at home, or doing, being a lot freer to actually educate themselves in different ways. I'm excited to see what happens as a result.
You know, I had two teenagers, one's a senior, one's a junior. And I thought we'd seen the end of snow days, but they still took a snow day. It was snowing last week. I was like, what happened? What did I miss here?
Yeah, I heard that too. And I thought, you're home. There's no snow day here. Well, I mean, we heard that from the banks too, you know, they were closed because it was a snow day. And I said, you know, virtual banking, we can handle it. But
exactly.
Anyway.
But I want to go back to something you just said, because I think you're right. I've, you know, I hear, and you hear this conversation about when do we get back to normal? And I will tell you that bothers me, because if, you know, we're done with 2020, and 21 is kind of repeating 20 in many ways. And yeah, as a Black man, I don't know if I want to go back to what was normal, because the definition of normal wasn't exactly great for a lot of people. And so I think there is a new normal, just like we had a new normal come out of 9/11, we had a new normal came out of the economic recession. And so I think we have to accept the fact that there's going to be some new normalities that are either being formed or will be formed in this post-COVID space.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a big disruption of the way we think things ought to be. And, you know, for me, you know, things weren't great before. I mean, they were okay, but they weren't great. I mean, we all have stories about, you know, that our families tell us or that we've experienced where, you know, there was a lot of discrimination or a lot of, you know, ways in which we were excluded from things. And now, you know, I'm not going to say there's a level playing field, but I think it gives everybody an opportunity, you know, to try something different or try a different way of doing things or learn differently or, you know, create new opportunities. I don't know, maybe it's because I hang around with entrepreneurs all the time that I'm, you know, kind of a Pollyanna about all of this, but I have great hope that, you know, that more people will be engaged and more people will have opportunities that they didn't anticipate before, you know, because they didn't see it or they didn't have access. And, you know, and maybe we'll, you know, it's like in that Malcolm Gladwell book, Blink, you know, where they did their interviews of new candidates for the orchestra behind, you know, behind the curtain. You don't, you know, all you're looking for is quality. All you're looking for is the best. And doesn't matter who's playing it. It matters what it sounds like. And
how it's, no, I love Malcolm Gladwell. That's a great analogy. But finish your Pollyanna. So let's, you know, put the crystal ball in 5 years from now. 5 years as we're 2026, you know, 27. You know, we obviously we're past this pandemic and preferably not into another one, but we might be. But what does that look like for you?
I used to have a big crystal ball on all of this stuff. You know, I've been so overwhelmed with what I don't anticipate. You know, 20 years of what, you know, I say that I'm on this journey with all 800 of my companies because I'm fascinated with how it evolves. And if anybody could have said to me, you know, where are we going to be in 20 years, you know, in 2000, where would we be in 2020? And we made all of these prognosis about, oh, our companies will have raised $5 billion by this time. And, you know, we were working with a telehealth company, which we didn't talk about telehealth at the time, you know, well, we'll see whether or not people are willing to get their blood pressure tested in a remote, in an environment that, you know, they go to a CVS store. And then, you know, gene therapy, I mean, what is that? You know, you know, and why would anybody, you know, what, we thought Zipcar would own the entire country, and nobody even knows what Zipcar anymore because it's owned by Avis. And so it, you know, it's now a part of Avis. There's no Zipcar, but there is an Uber. And what's next after Uber? And so it, you know, I've stopped sort of looking at the future and thinking I'm just open to whatever it is that comes across my desk. I'm just going to assume it has great opportunity coming through, and we'll see. I'm not a big sci-fi person. I wasn't in the past, but I'm beginning to appreciate the fact that a lot of the stuff that we saw 20 years ago or 30 years ago in sci-fi is now real. The only thing I'm waiting for is that Star Trek beam me up piece, which I would love to have.
You're right. The holodeck room, we're very close to having the holodeck room done. And so, yeah, I wrote an article about that, about the Jetsons. If you go back and look at the Jetsons from the 60s, how much of that technology that you saw in the Jetsons has become real. Well, Amy, as we discussed, you and I could chat, and I so thank you for everything that you have done and are doing and will do for women and for entrepreneurs and the support of TEDCO and especially here in Maryland. So thank you again for talking to me today and talking to our audience today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be working with you, Troy. Congratulations on taking the helm of TEDCO, and count me in.
Thank you. Look, everyone, thanks again. Again, if you hadn't had a chance to go check out Springboard, for you women entrepreneurs out there, this was meant for you. I hope someone out there, I always believe that these TEDCO talks talk to somebody. And so I hope that through this, somebody got inspired to go be an entrepreneur today. And so, Amy, thank you. Thank you all for listening. This is, again, Troy Stovall, CEO of TEDCO Talks. Thanks again, and see you next week.